What's happening, everyone? We got another BM Creations model to come in. It's one of the earlier ones, I think, because it's still in a crystal case. It's the 1994 Subaru Impreza WRX Sti. So this would make it the first generation Impreza, and I actually used to have one. I used to have a 1998 station wagon, and it was just a normal one, not a WRX or anything like that. This is my winter car, and it was great. It was a great car. But anyway, so that's I have a little soft spot for the Imprezas because of that. Boy, okay. Packaging. Alright, so we got the box here. BM Creations are licensed there in the bottom left, and right-hand drive. Not that I really care about what side the steering wheel is on. I've driven cars on both sides with the steering wheel. It's not that hard to do, really. Alright, so the first generation Imprezas were from 92 to 2000, I think, at least the WRXs. And there were front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive options. There were four-door sedans, and as I mentioned, hatchbacks or wagon, whatever you want to call it. And then it was actually based off the Legacy platform. It was a shortened version of that. Look at this, interesting. I've never seen this before. Why would they feel compelled to... I guess maybe this wing must fall off during shipping a lot, you know, if it drops. So they're trying to prevent that wing to break the glue. Okay, well that's a new one. There we go. Let's get rid of that. Ooh, you can see the tape is all old and yellowed. Okay, what else? This thing, depending on what market, it would have had either a 1.5 up to a 2.5 liter flat 4-cylinder, so that was good for a low center of gravity and good engine balance as well. And then WRX is an acronym for World Rally Experimental, and I guess that helped. Well, sorry, the WRX trim level would get you some stiffened suspension, and the engine would now be turbocharged. But then in 1994, which is the model we're opening here, that was the first year for the STI version of the WRX. So it's really just a whole bunch of acronyms layered on top of each other, piling more acronyms on. Oh, look at this. So there's a wing. That's why that piece of plastic was on there. You can put on this little lower wing here, which I guess maybe I'll save and try to do. This little thing is for mounting it back on that crystal base, but at the lower suspension level. But I don't really bother doing that. I'll put this back in the base because there's no antennas or anything that falls off. Okay, so the STI version, depending on the country or what year of what part of 94, because there's a change in that year, it would have had either 250 to 270 horsepower, and then I believe some amenities were removed to reduce the weight. And I think the latter part of the year, the STIs moved to 16-inch wheels, which could be these. I think it is these, because well, I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on this STI. I'm just looking at these wheels. I don't know which I like more. But I'm going to show you both, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Let's compare it to a couple photos here. So, yeah, you can see the wheels that came on the model are supposed to mimic those. Alright. Look at the little fog light covers there. The red badging, or pink badging. Okay, I think that looks good. In this case, the rear wing is matching this photograph. Couldn't find a blue one from the back side, but still has the same wheels and still has the same wing. So, you know, maybe this badging here was a different part of the year than that one. Also, maybe this is a different country. It could be JDM or export, and this might be the other one. So I wouldn't really look at the badging too much. Just try to look at the shape of the casting. Alright. Okay, let's get a closer look here. So the blue is quite dark. I don't recall, Imprezas having this kind of darker blue ever, but it does look pretty similar to the photograph, so I imagine it must be right. If it's licensed, maybe Subaru actually gives them the color code. Okay, so the wheels, yeah, I think they look pretty close to the photographs. You can kind of see on the back one the 5 little lug nut depressions and a little bit of a center cap there in the middle. So I think that's pretty good. I think these are really good tires, actually. Well, they're a little different. I don't know if some people are going to think those are too off-roady looking, but I like the fact that it has a little slanted side block grooves there. So then let's look at the bottom of the tire. Oh boy, yeah. So I'm just laughing because the width of this tire is ridiculously narrow. I mean, you're not going to be putting 250, 270 horsepower through tires that look like they came off of a Model T. So I think, BM Creations has widened their tires a little bit, but not really too much. The diecast master Sylvia has normal width tires. That's the only one that I've seen so far. Okay, it's screwed together, so obviously you need to have that to swap out the wheels. But it's we'll take a look at the interior as well later. We got silver paint on this dual exhaust tip. That other photo had a single exhaust tip, but again, there was a change in '94, so still, this could be accurate. Alright, so we got some orange paint for the side marker. You can see a little on the front one as well. The door handles, they're somewhat, yeah, they're flush on the real car, so I guess that's their idea of making a flush door handle. And you can see a little bit of the black plastic base showing this bottom side skirt. But the side skirt is color matched on that photograph. And it's weird because the white photograph doesn't even have a side skirt. Maybe that's just a normal STI, that white photograph. I'm sorry, maybe it's just a normal WRX, the white photograph, but the blue one is an STI. Okay, some tiny black paint lines here on the casting for the window trim. The mirrors do have a little silver paint in there, so that's great. Yeah, so we don't know if that... Well, anyways, there's WRX there, that's fine. Oh, I see. These tail lamps also don't match up with that rear photograph, so I apologize. I seem to have pulled up the wrong rear view photograph. I think that is just an WRX and not... No, wait, I'm sorry again. Boy, there on the license plate, it does say STI. On both of these. Right, the STI on the license plate. So, that's really weird again, yeah. It's that, I guess maybe that changed in late '94. Where one of them did or did not have the side skirt and may or may not had different types of taillights. I gotta say, it's nice that the taillights are plastic, but there's not much definition between the backup and the turn signals. It's like all kind of faded together. So I have a suspicion maybe that paint, maybe there's orange and silver paint behind this thing, and maybe this is a clear red and somewhat clear plastic, but it's cold molded, so the red is flowing into the clear. I don't know. It's not a clear separation, which I've seen on other models. So that's a bit of a nitpick. But it is nice to see that there's STI printed on the license plate, so I like that. The wing isn't super thick, so that's fine. The defroster lines, I guess they're not blocking the view because you can see my finger through the front end. But from here, they just do look a bit too thick to me. I mean, you can't really see defroster lines on photographs of a real car because they're so thin. So I feel like it would have been better just to leave these off. There's a raised wiper blade here, painted black, along with the blackout of the window. This side here, just a fuel filler door would be different from the other side. It's a little bit orange peely, but not so bad that I want to get rid of this model. Okay, so the front end, we got the clear headlights, and they seem to have some molded details, like tiny little ridges inside there, so that's cool. And the ridges are on the back side because it's perfectly smooth on the outside. And then the STI thing. But, and I think I saw this on the white BM creations. The STI printing is all red. To my understanding, all the STI badging is pink. So this isn't very accurate. You know, the color choice here, it should be pink and not red. I'm not sure why they would have done that. Okay, but then the printing here on the fog light covers looks pretty good. Wait a second, is this paint? I think it might be plastic, actually. I'm gonna try to zoom in. Let's focus. Zoom. It's so shiny. Now it must be paint because it's kind of like it's not perfectly molded. And then I can now see a little glue residue here, but it's a soft glue. It's not like crazy glue, so I think I could probably, yeah, see, I can scrape that off. So that's nice. You know, it's not permanently damaged. I can pick that off later. Alright, so these little orange things are actually paint, but they were so glossy. To the naked eye, I almost thought they were transparent plastic. Okay. Now, this hood scoop here that goes to the intercooler, I don't know if that's blanked off. I think it actually is a hollow hole. When I open it up, I guess we'll know for sure. I'll try to see if any light gets through. So, with the interior all assembled, you can still see a little red of it, but let's crack this guy open and get a better look at that interior and the internal parts here. So that's how the window's put on, 2 rivets, and it splits. This is a new one. I'm not sure if I've seen a window like this either, you know, where it's split 45 degrees. So interesting. Also, the dashboard is press fit up to the casting, and it's just glued, so that's another great thing. Again, this glue is soft, see? So if you wanted to, you could take it off and then repaint it and then just glue it back. You know, you don't have to drill any rivets out. I guess they probably riveted this because they don't, well, it has to be forced, you know, a tension against the casting. So you look at the vent there on the hood. You can see the pick moving behind the vent, so it is actually a functional vent. So that's pretty cool. Alright, well. And then the mirrors here, they're separate pieces, by the way. They're not part of the casting. They're rigid plastic, so if you drop this, it will break. So keep that in mind. Okay, the interior. BMs uses decals on their interiors, which, if applied nicely, like these are applied okay. I don't really have much to complain about because you're not going to touch the interior very often, so they should stay intact for a while. But I have a couple BMs where the decals are not applied very nice, so I kind of feel like they might even want to skip them. But this one worked out alright. That's very loose. Okay, so there's 4 screws holding this together. So the washer was on top, but if I now put this washer on the bottom, I am now raising the wheels, effectively sinking them underneath the fenders, so it should look like it's a lowered car. So here's the rear pieces. Let's see. There's an index on this with these older ones, but this bump one here goes on the bottom and this fits over that index. This little tooth on the left side. And so the other one goes on top. And again, the tooth is here, so we just gotta match up the teeth. But there's that bump there. Okay. So now I just have to screw those back on, and you know what, I'm going to do that and then show you the difference in the ride height because the front ones are still attached. Okay, so you can see how much of a difference with the washer underneath. You know, it's lowering the car significantly. You know, you can just see how much of the tire is, that's a huge difference. I never realized that. And the steering tie rod is in the front still. Okay, not too tight so it can still steer. Okay, super lowered. You can clearly see that the wheels are much more sunken into the wheel wells. It's lowered quite a bit, but it's still, you know, able to steer because they've added a little bit of camber, you know, to get the tire underneath the fender. It's not as pronounced as some of the other ones I've seen. Well, maybe when it's in a resting position. Look how much camber there is. But as I hold it just with gravity, it doesn't actually look like it's cambered that much. But once it rests, I think it goes like that. All right. So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to edit this in because this is how I'm going to keep the car in my display cabinet. I like the original wheels on this. Or actually, I like the aftermarket wheels enough that I think I'm going to save those for another BM Creations that has bad wheels. These wheels are good enough that I'm cool with it displayed this way. But I want to show you guys that by putting the washer underneath, you know, this is now a lowered riding stance, but it's still able to steer. So it doesn't steer as well, but it does steer. When I say it doesn't steer as well, you see it doesn't go to the back. It doesn't go this way. Well, no, you can push it. Never mind. It does work. It's just the aftermarket ones are cambered a little bit more, so they steer a little bit easier. Okay. So let's get back to the rest of the video where it has the aftermarket wheels. Let's take a look at this wing here. It seems to be, you know, a friction fit. You know, lightly pull on both sides and wiggle it a little bit. Although it's not, it's a pretty tight fit. I feel like that's gonna break. I kind of feel like this is not something that they want to pursue in the future, and maybe that's why I don't see it on the future models. But this is definitely gonna break with most people, and then you're gonna have a bunch of plastic in the casting that then people are going to try to drill out and then end up scratching their paint. There we go. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but for the sake of the video and the sake I've never seen a BMs with a different wing, we're going to do it. Yeah, see, it's really tight. I don't think it wants to actually fit in the holes there. I think there's too much paint on the plastic. Yeah, that's too, well. No, sorry guys. That's as close as I'm gonna get it because I don't like this wing. I don't want to push it in because I don't think it'll ever come out again. But here's you're gonna have to just imagine that lower than it is. I'm putting the other wing back on because it matches the photographs. I kind of want it to look like the real car. Okay, well, anyways, if you do get this model, you could just take like a nail file and maybe sand down the paint a tiny bit, or maybe if you're careful, put a little drill bit into the casting itself and drill out the hole a little bit, and then the wings would be easier to swap. But for me, I kind of like the higher wing myself. Alright, so let's compare it to a couple other castings here. So the race car is made by CM's, which is a out of business diecast company, but still they made some really cool rally cars. And then the white one is a random no-name dealership model. So I think you literally had to get it at like a Japanese Subaru dealership, and it's really well done, I think. But in this case, you can clearly see that the BMs with the lowered suspension, I mean, look how low it is, right? But let's take a look at the top view. We're looking at different generations of vehicles as well. So the very first Impreza is naturally a lot smaller than this much newer Impreza. And that naturally occurs almost with most cars with new generations. They make them a little bit bigger and more expensive. Okay. Alright, so still want to let this thing spin on its own. Give it due time. I'm going to set up the steering a little bit. So yeah, maybe that's not the best coaster. You wouldn't be going off-road on such a lowered vehicle. I probably should have put on this coaster before I swapped out the wheels. But anyways, I do like this model. Even though it's an early BM Creations, I do like this casting. It looks pretty nice. And hopefully you guys will tune in until the next time I get another BM Creations. Thanks.